Let's talk about multicast terminology. Remember that the source of the multicast traffic is always put at the top of the diagram, whereas the receiver is always placed at the bottom of the diagram. So when talking about devices or interfaces that are closer to the receiver, we are talking about devices or interfaces that are downstream devices or downstream interfaces. Now, when we are talking about devices or interfaces that are closer to the source, we will be talking about upstream devices or upstream interfaces. So if we take router 3 for instance, for router 3, router 1 is an upstream device. Whereas if we take router 1 point of view, router 3 will be a downstream device. Now let's analyze router 1. Gigabit 10, gigabit 20, and gigabit 30 are all of them downstream interfaces because they are closer to the receiver. They can also be named outgoing interfaces because these are interfaces where multicast will be coming out of the router. Now, how about gigabit 00? Gigabit 00 is known as an upstream interface because it is closer to the source. It is also known as incoming interface because multicast will be arriving at that interface. It is also known as reverse path forwarding interface because it will comply with a reverse path forwarding rule that will be talk about it later. Remember that the router that is closest to the source is known as the first hop router, and the router that is closest to the receiver is known as the last hop router. Coming back to router 1, if you put together gigabit 10, 20, and 30, which are all downstream interfaces, you can create an outgoing interface list. So for router 1, the outgoing interface list is gigabit 10, gigabit 20, and gigabit 30. Remember that for multicast, each router has its own multicast routing information base. And from that table, the mfib is created in order to have ceph, so you can ceph switch multicast packets. In this example, router 1 and router 2 are reverse path forwarding neighbors. Router 1 and router 3 are also reverse path forwarding neighbors, and router 1 and router 4 are also reverse path forwarding neighbors.